the conservation.
All right, we're on. Welcome to the Sherborn Board of Selectmen meeting, July 24th, 2014. We're going to ask our town administrator, Dave Williams, to read the agenda.
First, we'll vote to approve or amend the agenda, and then add topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance. Then public comment period, and then discussion of Pine Hill Road access, and Grant Gregory, Eagle Scout candidate, is here. And consideration of appointments and charges after that. List of appointments would be election workers, treasurer, and a number of other appointments. Public Safety Committee charge amendment. And we'll try to set a date to have the Wildlife Management Committee come in. Then a presentation from Carol Rubenstein, Chair, Recycling Committee, regarding drop-off food waste program. And then under the Town Administrator report, I'll update you on the Treasurer retirement preparations and update on the Town Administrator job description bylaw change. Then there's a section for Selectmen reports, meeting calendar and set the next meeting, future topics and approval of minutes, approval of warrant, and then an executive session.
Okay, very good. And we have any amendments to that agenda?
No, nope, so I move to approve, the agenda is read.
Just one comment that
Okay.
I had some edits on the June 19th minutes. I'm not sure that,
I haven't done them yet.
so can we hold on?
Okay, so June 19th,
Minutes,
you said you did not have any, or you hadn't seen them?
no, that's a few minutes.
I
You have some
had
edits.
quite a few edits. I gave
That
them
were
to
not
her,
made, okay, all right.
and she hasn't had a chance to process them yet.
Well, maybe what we can do is, if Peter and I have edits, we can add those to the list, and then we come in. So we'll leave it on there, but not for purpose of approving it. We'll just make any additional comments. Is that all right?
Okay.
All right, good.
Can I
So we have a
also-
motion, a second to the agenda? Oh, David?
Can I make another suggestion for an amendment? Is on the agenda, it lists Conservation Commission appointments,
Yes.
and we're doing those August 7th.
August 7th, okay, thanks. Okay, so we'll delete Conservation Commission appointments. And so now with those changes, do we have a motion
So moved,
as amended?
as amended.
You second? Okay. All in favor? Okay, great. We've accomplished something. We've approved the agenda. Public comment. We didn't have anybody sign up for public comment, so I'm assuming there's no public comment tonight. It's a rare day, and I'm going to go quickly so we don't lose that. We're going to discuss
So nothing
Pine
sneaks in.
Hill Access Road next, and that I'm going to introduce Superintendent Bliss, and he can, I guess, start the conversation. You have someone to introduce, I understand, too, maybe a couple of people.
Absolutely, I do, and I want to thank you, Mr. Gimo, Mr. Durensis, Mr. Caruso, Mr. Williams, for inviting us here this evening. Several months ago, Grant Gregory, who was a junior at the time, approached me about supporting him, helping to support him in his effort towards an Eagle Scout project. And at the time, we discussed the Pine Hill Access Road, the emergency access road, and we've had several meetings on the project, and I want to thank Mrs. Hovey for being here this evening. And of course, to Mrs. Hovey is the secretary of the Sherborn School Committee, so we thank Ann for being here this evening. And of course, Grant Gregory, who now is a rising senior at Dover Sherborn Regional High School, and proudly heading off to BU, actually. You have one more year with us, Grant, right?
Yes, one more.
That's great. And there have been a number of community members that have certainly helped along the way and continue to offer guidance and counsel to Grant, including Mr. Kickham, Mrs. Walsh, Mr. Wagner, Mr. Hendricks, who's the lead groundskeeper actually from the regional campus, who's actually consulted as well, and Ralph Kelly. So we want to thank you for having us here this evening, and without further delay, I'd like to introduce Grant to explain the project.
Thank you very much. So the basic scope of my project right now, as you can see on the screen, is I'm working on beautification of the Pine Hill entrance side of the access road. Right now, there's a plan to move it. Can we show the gate?
Oh, sure.
We're going to install a gate that is not going to be involved in my actual project, but it is going to be installed. It's going to look something like that. That's a rendering. And then my actual project is concerning installing some grass beds, perennials, shrubbery, and also some boulders, if we can switch back, to help beautify the road and also prevent erosion at the same time. And the current plan right now is to, if you can sort of see the faded, right here is the gate, and above and below the gate are 2 boulders. And the purpose of those boulders is to prevent any cars from going around the gate and using the road for non-emergency use. And so around those 2 boulders, we're going to have some variety of shrubs between the purple coneflower, the black-eyed Susan, and perhaps even the Roseanne cranesbill. I'm still working with Mrs. Walsh on the exact shrubs that we're going to use, but as for the beautification process, we're making sure that all shrubs are not invasive. They are there to also help ensure there's no erosion, as well as in the end make sure that the road does look much more presentable at the same time. And then, as you can see with the green sort of splotches, those are the grass beds. Right now, I'm working with Mr. Hendricks to determine the appropriate sort of grass seed that, like you said before, continues to beautify, prevents erosion, and is not invasive, and has minimal care, but also still does its job. And then we're also trying to install a couple more boulders along the road, again, just to help provide some more structure, reduce the cost of the project, as well as make it look as natural and, aesthetically pleasing as possible. And so working around those, we have some more shrubs, we have perennials as well, and I'm still in the early stages with Mrs. Walsh about deciding the exact placement of each one, and also how many we want to include. But obviously we're still focusing on keeping the costs low, erosion control, and aesthetically pleasing.
And back to the point, thank you, Grant, with the gate, Mr. Wagner, and certainly he's in the audience, and I'm sure would be happy to speak to it, solicited a few quotes for the gates, and they were a wide range of quotes, actually, for the proposed gate, and this one is quite affordable and fits, I believe, within the construct of the budget parameters that were in place for the project in the first place, I believe is the plan. So, Mr. Wagner, is that accurate?
Yes. The gate we purchased from Reliable, they'll be doing work in a couple weeks. The cost for both gates installed is right around $3,300.
Can I ask a question? Is there going to be a lock on the gates?
Yes.
And who will have keys?
All emergency personnel, fire personnel, and safety crews. It'll be a town lock.
So it's the same key that works the other gates?
Yes.
Will school people have a key?
I believe they already have one.
Well, we should, when it's installed, we will.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Total cost is right around $3,400. We'll be utilizing the remainder of the funds for the original access road installation. That should help close that article out.
And then as Grant so eloquently spoke to, the notion of placing some very natural boulders, large rocks on either side of the gate will, as Grant said, prohibit any vehicular traffic from circumventing the gate and actually gaining access to the road when unnecessarily gaining access to the road.
And
So
we're talking both ends of the road?
the scope of Grant's project
Grants is down at...
Grant's is actually for the Pine Hill side of
Oh, okay.
of the
Up at the school. Gotcha.
school side.
But Ed, you're talking gates for both ends, yes?
We'll be doing gates on both ends. The one on the Elliott Street side will be set back about 30 feet to allow emergency vehicles to pull off the road, then undo the gate.
Gotcha.
The police also wanted it there for their...
But the both gates are still within the $3,300 you're
Yes.
talking about? Yeah.
And the Pine Hill side will be just about probably 10 feet off the parking lot, sort of flush, wherever Grant's placement.
And there'll be boulders there too? On both gates?
That was that's the notion. Yeah. the parking spaces right on the Pine Hill side, the parking lot side, those parking spaces have already been marked, obviously, as they've been blockaded, as it were, with lining.
So nobody parks there anyway, yeah.
Right, and really, no one has been parking there, which has
Right.
been great
Right.
so far. And Chief Thompson, to Mr. Wagner's point, had asked for the Elliott Street gate to be situated sufficiently back so that he could exercise some radar control as well in that area, which of course has been delineated as there's appropriate signage now there as a school zone.
Yeah, it's something for our town to be very proud of, to have fine young men become Eagle Scouts. It's a huge thing to do, and so this project will certainly help get you there. Maybe you could just talk a little bit about how that fits into all that you have to do to qualify as an Eagle Scout. I have a Girl Scout Gold, and I know she went through a lot to get to that point, so, knowing these Eagles, we've seen a few Eagles. I know Paul goes to all of the Eagle Scout ceremonies, and it's wonderful to see. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you have to go through here, Grant.
It's definitely a long process, very rewarding once you do finish, and it stays with you forever, which is obviously something to be commemorated about. My actual project started with, like every other Eagle Scouts, brainstorming for ideas, searching, various institutes, the church, school, other various communities. And so when I got word of doing something on the actual emergency access road, I met with Mr. Bliss, who graciously met with me, sort of backed me from the start, and we discussed a pretty large scope in the beginning from the direction of Dr. Terry Shanahan-Seisler, who is the Eagle Scout manager, and she said to start with a very large scope just so that you can work down and whittle it a little bit and make it easier in the end for you. So originally my project was going to span the entire access road, and I was going to help install both gates and do the beautification along the whole road, which as a 17-year-old going to turn 18 in October, mid-October, when the deadline is due, it was understandably whittled down to just the Pine Hill side, working on the beautification process and letting the town deal with more of the gates and, the actual side on Route 16, just so I can still get my project done. Definitely have enough with this. This is definitely substantial, but at the same time, making sure I don't overload myself with work.
Yeah, that's great. And the school administration and committees are all excited about this?
Very much so, yes.
Yeah.
We're so proud of Grant and all of our Eagles, and it's always a pleasure. I go and I speak at the Eagle ceremonies with Mr. Durensis. That's sort of our standing engagement every few months. But it's really remarkable when we think of the bocce court that was installed at Woodhaven and other incredible projects around town. It's really a credit, and then to watch young men be able to meet people involved with the school system, town government. I mean, it's just such an incredible lesson, really.
So how did you learn about landscaping? Was that have you been talking with people about that, or how does that happen?
Fortunately, the Boy Scout community is very large in Sherborn, and because the town is understandably not the largest, people know a lot of people, and so I fortunately have a lot of friends who, Connor Walsh, who's a grade above me, was one of my friends in the Boy Scouts, and his mom is a landscaper, so she graciously volunteered to help me out along with Mr. Hendricks through the school, and so I've met with them a couple times and really am pushing forward and using their expertise to my advantage.
Okay. And I had a question just about reading your plan. Are you doing the first 80 feet? Is that what I understand of this, or
Right now,
how
that's
long are you doing?
that's the rough estimate. We're still calculating the exact costs and everything. So right now, we're finalizing where we want the shrubs to go, which ones we want, and once we come down to that, then we'll be able to come up with the cost plan, and then we'll see how far we want to go.
Okay. And we usually, we often hear from Eagle Scouts, and we come in and we give them a certificate when they're done with their project. I think this is the first time since I've been on the board, which isn't all that long, that we've seen somebody at the front end of the process. So you may have some people with questions or advice or suggestions here today, too, and, just know they're meant in good, good spirit and in the, the spirit of trying to constructively address this road issue.
Can I take that as a segue to first find out if Ed Wagner, Director of CM&D, is okay with this plan, for the record?
Yes.
That's a-
Met a couple times with Grant and Mr. Bliss, and we've been in close email contact also regarding the project.
And I also see a representative of Town Forest here, and I wonder what Town Forest Committee thinks about this.
I think it's beautiful, and of course, we traded the land to the selectmen, so they gave us some other land and replaced that. So I think it's great, and, you're in charge of it now.
Okay, and then I see some abutters here. I wonder if they have comments. Could we hear from them?
Yeah, I don't see any butters, but we can certainly hear from members of the public.
Well, members of the public.
Planners and butters.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's what it is, and it's obviously an attempt to improve it. Sounds good. I'm sort of curious, why not a wooden gate rather than a sort of a cold-looking metal gate, but...
Did you look at that, Ed, at all? I had kind of the same thought when I saw that plan.
Strictly from a maintenance and long-standing, we've had good success with metal gates in town, durability and holding up. This one here, again, being metal, we can paint it black, it'll blend right into the scenery, and be durable and long-standing.
Yeah. And I was also here because there was some talk about using the asphalt scrapings on the surface of the road. I don't know if that's going to come up as an issue, but that was...
I don't think we were going to talk about that tonight, probably, but I mean, you can certainly feel free to express an opinion if you've got one or want to ask any questions about it. Ed's the resident expert on that topic.
Were you thinking of doing that, Ed?
I presented it to the town administrator as a good viable option for the coating on the road. They're utilized widely throughout the state for access roads, for pump station roads. It's a great white recycled surface. It costs the town next to nothing to apply. It controls the erosion and just adds more durability to the road.
Yeah.
We've needed to do that when we did 27, was that the plan?
No, it was very convenient to do it while we were doing 27 because the haul is very short. However, we can do it anytime, the next time that we drive the road in town. Woodland Street, I think, is coming up, so we can certainly do it then.
We don't have the material?
If there's any question on the material, anybody who's gone to the Douse Orchard up on Rockwood, they've utilized those on their parking lot and also the roadways going through the orchard.
Does it come out, does it look very black, or is it grayish and
It'll look
blends
black,
in?
it'll look sort of black in the beginning and as dust, and it's not a road that's going to be swept and
Yes,
and cleaned up. Over time, it'll start to break apart into a gravel. But what it does is it controls erosion. Right now, if you were to go out in a heavy rainstorm, it's certainly going to have some mud. This will eliminate a lot of that.
It's easier for plowing in the winter and so
Yeah, if
forth?
you apply it here in the summertime and kind of roll it in, pack it in pretty good, it holds up pretty good.
What's the base you used when you made that road? What kind of base did you put down?
It's a state mix. It's a mixture of sand, gravel, and different various sizes of gravel. They call it state mix, road mix.
So there's no like compacted asphalt or anything on that?
So the reason I had, at the time, not said to go ahead with it is because I had a concern about, well, first it was 3 days out when the tailings were actually going to start accruing, and 2 of those days I was going to be gone out of town, and I didn't know what this would actually look like. And I remember meeting with Lanny and some about this, about their concerns, and Paul and Ed, and so I just wasn't comfortable saying go ahead and do it. But the next opportunity to do this would be, I believe, in September. So if we're interested in pursuing this, on any road, then,
Well, it sounded like a great idea to me, but, if it was visually a problem or,
Could I suggest we defer discussion on that until there's an actual proposal and let them have a chance to get educated about it?
Yeah, I mean,
Stakeholders.
that's what I was hoping to do tonight, that if somebody had immediate questions, but that we don't make a decision or,
It's not on the agenda.
it's not really.
right.
But I do want to get the comments from Blaney and from Susie Wheelwright on
And,
this.
and from Susan Tyler, who's got her hand up also.
Thank you.
And Sean. I
see what you started here, Grant?
Hold on, wait.
Okay, you.
First of all, excuse my glasses, I just had a dilated eye exam. Lights are very difficult. I wanted to ask you where you got the idea for this project?
Yeah, so my mom, I have to thank her a lot for helping me a ton on this project. She's very involved in the community and in the schools. And so she actually had word before I even started this project or looking for projects that the emergency access road was it wasn't fully completed yet after they did the original gravel and everything. She understood that they were going to try and get gates in, maybe try and add some things to help beautify it. And so she gave me that. She also gave me a couple other options throughout this other school systems, like Pine Hill at the middle school as well, high school. But then when I met with Mr. Bliss, it sort of seemed like that was the best project that I could do that'd make the biggest impact. And sort of this, as you see here, is sort of developed from a lot of the help from Mr. Hendricks and Mrs. Walsh and their guidance and their expertise with landscaping.
Well, I think I remember, and maybe you will as well, Lenny, that there was a request that that those people who felt that this road was overbuilt from the town meeting vote, which just authorized some gravel on a much narrower cart path to be used as an emergency access road only, that there was to be input in terms of what was done to control erosion and to get back to the natural state that this road started out and the state in which it was when that town meeting vote was taken. I just want to show you a little bit, and understand this is not against your project. That's why I asked you where the idea came
That's
from. You came into this late, and a lot of other people, even David Williams, came into it late. The Bay Circuit Trail went through what was a lovely natural area, and Sherborn section of the Bay Circuit Trail, which runs from a nice ring around Boston. It's a regional trail from the north to the south through, I believe it's 32 towns. And as you can see, because this shows the publicly accessible land and the trail, almost all of Sherborn section is in publicly accessible land and using trails that already existed. It's a dedicated trail, the town accepted it. It runs through beautiful natural areas, and it is known region-wide as being the jewel of the Bay Circuit Trail, Sherborn is. I think that what we need to do is, and I think that it can be cost-effective. I think that it can shrink your project just a little bit. And I think that it will control erosion with almost no maintenance once it has been installed, and that is to plant native hardwood trees for most of the length of that section of the road from Elliott Street to some beginning of your project, which sounds very lovely and appropriate right at the entrance at Pine Hill. So instead of 80 feet, if perhaps you shrunk your project to 50 feet, 30 feet, whatever you find to be feasible cost-wise, and perhaps included rocks in some other places beyond your scope of flowers and decorative grasses. That would, I think, solve a lot of the problems of the town meeting vote, which really didn't authorize what is on the ground. And I'll just share with you, I happened to meet in the parking lot this afternoon, Denny Nacconi, who's the Bay Circuit representative, and who had not seen this. And he stood there and he looked at the road and he said, "Looks like an interstate." And I said, "Yes, it's known in town as the Pine Hill Interstate." And so I think he was very nonplussed to find this, although he knew about it, he hadn't seen it on the ground. And Chris Tillman then bicycled up because they were meeting over some other issues. And he didn't know anything about any of this. So I think he has not been in the loop. And he is the Bay Circuit Trail representative. He's the Sherborn Forest and Trails president or whatever the head honcho is. And he should certainly have been consulted about this trail, which is now a very large road. So I guess I would ask you to sort of dial this back a little bit and come up with something that's a little more practical and a little more natural, which is where we started.
So Susan, I think you're next.
Yeah, question. First off, I think you've done a wonderful presentation here, and I thank you for your help to the town. And as far as the shrubbery and the cost, I know Mr. Wagner said that $3,300, $3,400 for the gates, and that would use up just about the funding that was there from when we approved this plan at town meeting. Where's the funding for the shrubbery coming from?
So the Eagle Scout projects typically, sometimes the school district will be able to contribute some of the funding, and that's what we would be looking to do here in a modest sum, and that's why we're trying to place boulders and really scale back the cost, but we recognize that it's at the Pine Hill end, and that it is part of the overall beautification for the school campus, and we're invested in that.
Okay, and then my second question was, I was wondering if there was, and ties into your project, any update on the state grant for the final stage of this road? Because the idea was to have it paved, and I thought there was $1 million that was, we were just waiting for it to be appropriated. That was over 1.5 years ago now.
Mr. Williams, if I may, Mr. Hess recently checked on that, and he indicates that the earmark is still active at the state level for the $1 million play. Now, what becomes of it, it's anyone's guess, but it's been it's near and dear to his heart, and he certainly checks on it and keeps the school committee updated, but we don't know anything more than that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Yeah, Dave Clean. One of the originators and one of the designers of the Bay Circuit Trail is Betty Dowse. And when it was time to talk about the Pine Hill access, we talked to her, and she's all for it. She said the town of Sherborn tried years and years ago to put a road up from Lake Street to take care of the children. And on the second point, the Bay Circuit Trail in the town of Sherborn has probably a minimum of 15 miles that is on the street. It does not go through the woods. It goes around, across the water, on Barber Reservation, and goes around into Ashland, all the way around the circuit. So the Bay Circuit Trail is having a lot of problems. There's a section right there on top of Pine Hill parking lot that they're going to redesign. So as far as, where the road is, it's on top of the pipeline and the Bay Circuit Trail all in one shot. It's been that way for years. And there's a lot of areas that these trails around the state have lost the land, and they have to go around everything.
So Dave, the trail itself was on the pipeline originally, is that what you're saying?
Part of it, yes.
In that area, and the
Yeah.
road is on top of where that was?
It goes back and
Back
forth,
and forth, okay.
perpendicular and, around, oh, sorry. But, it's gone, it's been changed quite a few times in the town of Sherborn.
It's changed 3 times just recently at the Barber Reservation.
But we heard that when they
Yes.
did the presentation about
Exactly,
the
you
barber,
now come
yeah.
out of Ashland on 126, all
And
the
they
way
walk all
down
the way
Whitney
around.
Street, all
Yeah.
the way back down to Western, and
Once
so-
the beaver dam it up.
and when you come out on the other side.
Oh, don't go on the
Rocky
beavers now.
Narrows, they tell you to walk a half a mile down Route 27 to Medfield. So to have the path go over a road that's hardly used at this point, but that's all been hashed out.
Sean, you had a thought?
Well, I want to make a point, it's not on his map, but maybe Ed could speak to it. He's talking about working on the first like 80 feet from the parking lot, which isn't where the road actually, I don't think that's where the road actually catches the pipeline. There's trails that parallel it that head down to the scout, the deck that's there, so there's still trails if you don't want to walk down the road. And that's where he's working isn't on the pipeline.
Right.
So maybe it's not even on the Bay Circuit Trail.
Right, and I understood Mrs. Wheelwright was talking about other stretches of that road, not so much the first 80 feet as much as the rest of it down to Elliott Street.
Right, so I'm just trying to separate what he's doing as kind of school campus, not on the Bay Circuit Trail at least. Maybe
Right.
that's helpful that he scaled it back and it's not the whole road.
Elliot, you had something, thanks.
Yeah, if I could talk all night, you know that. The traffic on Elliott Street, it's posted for 40 miles an hour. Much of the traffic is doing 50. So when you come out to Elliott Street with this access road, it's very important that you have sight distance in both directions and not have a lot of shrubs coming up to block that sight distance. Because you'll have more emergencies than you have access road for emergencies.
This is the other end, you know that, right? This is
the Elliott Street end.
But this design is not at Elliott Street, this design is up at the Pine Hill.
I understood this
Okay.
was both ends.
No, just the Pine Hill side, Elliott.
And as for landscaping and natural, I'm sure Mother Nature will naturally landscape what you don't. And also, you mentioned Bay Circuit Trail and this access road. If you want the Bay Circuit Trail, you can go over a few feet and just go through the woods and make your own little bridle path and take the Bay Circuit Trail off of here. But I think that's very insignificant. Also, you mentioned Bay Circuit Trail at the Barber Reservation, and I believe the beavers have flooded out most of them. And I'll say it again, every beaver in Massachusetts should be shot on sight. I don't care if it's Sunday or any holiday. We've got to get rid of the damn things. Okay, thank you.
So Grant, did you look into deer proofing your vegetation also?
Yeah,
I'm curious
Mrs.
about
Walsh has already, the ones that we're currently looking at are deer-proof. She made sure to make sure that all the plants that we have minimal damage from the wildlife that is already at Pine Hill. Just again, to make sure that the investment is worthwhile in the end and that we don't have the plants dying immediately.
Yeah, I would hate to see us, interrupt what he's trying to do, throw a wrench in the works. I think what he's shown us is great. I think it's a step in the right direction. I think the town does need to think about what it does for the rest of the road, and whether it's shrubbery or maybe putting trees back in, I don't know. I mean, when I first saw the road, I thought, wow, you could land a 747 on that. However, I was the proponent of the article, and supported by all the selectmen at the time, and what I wanted to see happen, what I put forth was, on the article that the voters approved, was to use the existing plan that voters had approved in previous years, and that's where the road was built. I didn't realize the magnitude of it, but that's what a road entails. And the objective was to, within budget, be able to use, not have to redo anything should the $1 million surface at some point in the future. I don't have high expectations for that, but I think what we've got, what all I really cared about was emergency access, and we've achieved that with the opportunity to fill in as voters had approved in years past here, should the funding come forth. So I think what Grant's got is great. I think more power to him. I hope that, it's good to see that I think the town's been cooperative, as well as residents within the town, the school administration. I think it's great.
Can I
Thank you, Mr. Caruso.
make a few comments? First, I want to acknowledge the contribution of the Boy Scout program through many community projects over many years. This is the latest, but it continues to amaze me that so much effort is contributed on a volunteer basis to make our community better. So I commend you for your willingness to help make Sherborn a better place. Very much appreciated. And the design that you've come up with the help that you've had, seems to me to be a good design in many ways. It has the approval of the school committee, from what I hear. It has the approval of the CM&D director. The town forest committee doesn't have a problem with it. And what I heard from the immediate abutter was that he was not opposed to this piece of the road. And on the issues, the broader issues, this is truly an emergency road. That's why I asked the questions about the lock. It would be very different if this was a gate that anybody could open and the traffic could use, if there was a backup of traffic and so on and so on. With locks on the gates at both sides, I think that everyone should take some comfort from the fact that this is truly an emergency road. And that gets me to the last point, which is the overriding concern that we all should have is the safety of our children. And we have many children, in fact, all of the children of Sherborn who go to public schools in that age group are at this facility, and it's the end, or was at the end of a fairly long dead-end road. And given what's happened across the nation with other schools, it is important that we provide for the safety of our children. And that was the unanimous recommendation of our fire chief and our police chief and all our public safety officials who've looked at this building. And it has been the recommendation consistently of the school committee. And therefore, we do have an obligation as selectmen to listen to that. As I've said, this is truly an emergency road because it is locked at both ends. It has gates. And I especially appreciate the boulders that are part of this design so that people can't say, oh, there's a road there, let's...
That goes my Friday night entertainment.
We can't have anybody zigzagging around the gate and making use of it. So I think the boulders are one of the best features of this design, and I suspect that came from Ed, but I don't know where it came from, but it's a stroke of genius to have those boulders there to keep it to the straight and narrow. I also like the idea of boulders along the road itself, so that once the road matures, there are defined points along the road to keep it where it's supposed to be, rather than letting people wander off it in some way. So for all those reasons, I feel I can support this design, and I'm prepared to endorse it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we have anything formal before us, but I'm also, I think it's great work. I think it's great to see somebody, a young person, picking up landscape architecture knowledge and, learning a little bit about some of these things that not as many kids are as interested in until later in life sometimes, but it looks like you've got a talent for it, and this is I'm sure this is a great experience, and it's good for the town too to have this, some design and some interest at that entrance.
His talent in landscape design is only trumped by his talent on the lacrosse field. However, Grant is a star lacrosse player at Dover Sherborn, and we're very proud of him.
You got something to fall back on after the lacrosse, I guess.
Yes, yeah.
I am going to,
Thanks for coming in.
Well,
Thank
before
you,
he
thank you for
leaves,
having me.
I think this road was put in the jurisdiction of the Board of Selectmen by act of the legislature. So I would like to formalize things by actually moving to approve the proposed design.
I'll second that.
I think it's in progress, Paul, so I would want it to be phrased that we endorse the process he's going through, I guess, because if we approve this design, then it kind of locks him in.
Good point, yes. So, welcome a friendly amendment. How would you want it worded?
Well, if we're going to approve something, maybe we approve we authorize Grant with the Eagle Scout program to continue his design for the first 80 feet of this road along the lines of what he's presented, I guess.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, great, good.
You'll approve the as-built plan.
I want to note
Yeah.
something, Mike. I just want to
That's
say,
great.
I want to meet with Ed again and just
Okay.
look at the Elliott Street entrance and cost out what had been talked about at
Yeah,
one
what is
time.
going to happen to the Elliott Street entrance?
What was talked about there?
Way to go.
At one time, there was talk of a wooden
right.
gate
Thanks,
on
Susie
that,
Lang.
a wooden gate on
Jump
that end
into-
as opposed to
I
a
know.
metal gate. I just wanted to see the cost of difference.
Yeah, I know they
Yeah.
they do
Part
have
of the
pretty
education.
simple rustic wooden gates. I mean, in Dover, I know the planning board pretty much requires those on
Good
scenic
job,
roads.
that's great.
They're gonna
Yeah,
take something
yeah.
off.
So I want to look at that again with Ed.
I miss not seeing you.
Likewise, Mr.
You know,
Caruso.
all
We'll
those
have coffee soon.
weekly summer meetings.
You have to get up really early, though, to meet with them.
That's right, yeah. It's a little too early.
Okay, good. So, moving ahead, just so we can keep things going, we're up to consideration of appointments and charges. Oh, Sean, you had something on that?
Well, I know you want to move on, but for future, you guys are going to talk about gates, obviously. September's going to come and go, and he may have already ground Woodland Street before this ever comes up. I think at some point prior to that, you guys should discuss allowing him to put the grindings down. He obviously can't do it without you guys talking. The town administrator's not comfortable. It should probably be a discussion.
Yeah, and I think we will, Sean, but we didn't want to do it today because...
And I'm not saying you should.
Paul's point earlier was more people ought to have a chance to know we're going to do that, but I think it's well taken. We should do that
Yeah, I just think
maybe
we
for
should.
a day in September.
We don't want to miss the opportunity because
Yeah.
I'm sure Ed would speak to what the road's going to look like if we get another winter.
So a day before September,
Yeah,
though.
are-
Well, no,
Yeah.
I would like to go out and check out what was put down at the Dows, and I think there was some used at the cemetery.
I was going to ask you if
Ended
the
up at-
cemetery is another place that
Right.
might be helpful.
In fact, the Dallas actually took a lot of the grindings that came off of North Main Street, and some of that was earmarked to go up to the cemetery with Chucky Lane, that Matt Dallas was going to spread.
Is it down yet?
I don't think it's down yet.
You want to look at your
No, I was just down there.
That's
The
recycling.
only thing I texted or emailed Peter a few pictures of the
You sent me a
Dallas.
picture, it was pretty gray looking, it wasn't
And
black.
also, their Dowsett side parking lot off the farm stand, from what John told me, that was in place for about 8 years, and it almost just is completely broken apart, it was like gravel. So
Where was the other picture? On Rockland Street?
But that gets driven on, this one's going to just sit there. You know, that's,
Wow.
I'm sure that's what people are going to say.
Well, the worry is erosion.
It's a great
Rain.
top dressing for erosion.
I understand.
It's free and.
It'll stay tighter in the winter too. I mean, there was tracks up there from, I think they're from the police chief going up in the winter. And
Well, everyone
tracks
seems
are-
to, yeah, a few people like to drive up and down it and see how durable it is in the rain, but the more durable checking that we do, the less durable it's going to become.
But it will be tighter if we use that rather
It
than
would
gravel instead,
definitely be a lot
right?
tighter than that.
Well, my point was that if it's not on the agenda, people don't know that it's going to be discussed. And because there are so many stakeholders out there who have opinions about this, and it was debated at a number of town meetings, it's fair to let them come and have their say.
Agreed. And my point was, please do that
Yeah, get it before September.
before you miss that opportunity because it's a free opportunity.
So David, you can put that on the agenda, you'll work with Ed on, in terms of looking at this stuff, so you know what, give us some advice.
Yeah, I think we can commit to finding someplace
Yeah,
to
good.
use it. I just don't know
But it's a
whether...
question of when he's doing the
If you want
Woodland
to
or
come back
whatever road
for a
you
vote.
go.
I think we kind of have to, we're not going to, this isn't going to move forward, you're not comfortable with it, and we haven't made any decisions. It's not going to happen unless we air it out and have a discussion. Paul's asked to have it aired out, so I guess, out of,
Okay.
comedy or courtesy to Paul, comedy with an M-I-T, or courtesy to Paul, I would say,
Comedy?
maybe it's comedy also.
It's no joke.
We should air that out.
But we make commitments to
Yeah,
different stakeholders that they have a
and
chance to...
that's fine, and you have requested that, so. But thanks, Sean, that's good advice. Carol, I think, since you're here, rather than go through appointments and charges, I think we can go right to your presentation if you're ready, and that'll,
Okay.
Should we call you the bucket lady now? Or are you going to kick the bucket?
No, I hope I'm not going to do that. But
yeah,
yes,
that was not
I do have-
EDY comedy, Paul.
Well, how about, is this your bucket list?
I do have a bunch of buckets
The
to show and tell
microphone.
what just happened.
I think the mic's on the other side of that bucket there. There you go. No, you're all right now.
Bucket hit the mic.
But thanks for coming in and for bringing your props, this is good.
I also brought some pictures for you to look at. I don't know. Sorry, Pat. Well, it's okay.
What?
Now it looks like Meet the Press, we're good.
Just wanted to wake Pat up, that's all.
Yeah, and all the viewers at home.
All right, finally they can hear what
Oh,
we're saying.
fantastic.
This picture you can see in real life.
Yeah?
This
Ah.
picture is the sign of the transfer station in front of the barrels.
Isn't it true that DEP is now saying that things have to be done about food?
Well, for restaurants, that's for sure.
Yes, for commercial entities that dispose of a ton a week. Commercial institutions.
That doesn't apply to
The Sherborn
Pine Hill?
No, Pine Hill doesn't get rid of a ton a week, and the high school doesn't either, not a ton.
How about our restaurant here, and any of the restaurants in town?
Not a ton. No, but we're going to try to work with them anyway, to see if we can get them to.
Yeah, I would think the place to start is the bigger producers. I don't know how much a ton of food waste is, but I would think that a place that serves...
We're starting with residents, because we have already tried to get the residents to do backyard composting, and for those who are not doing backyard composting, we now have a place for their food waste to go at the transfer station. And I wanted to announce it by means of a townwide mailing, and I wasn't able to send that out, so I'm trying to get the word out to as many people as possible, in as many ways as possible. I've distributed flyers, put it up at the bulletin board, put a sign up at the split, have things at the library, and now through the magic of television, I hope 1 million people are watching, and I'm going to try to describe the program here. We had these wonderful buckets from Home Depot donated to us with this inspirational message that says, "Let's do this." The recycling committee purchased these labels, Sherborn Recycles and Save. You'll all recognize that, I hope. We had them put on our buckets. It turned out to be much more expensive than I thought. I had a miscommunication with the printer, so we ran out of labels, and they don't all have them. So we ended up hand lettering them. So that's very cute. Some people laughed, some people thought it was very appropriate.
A lot of work.
So we ended up with 50 of these buckets between the 25 that were donated and the 25 that we ordered. We had 70, something like 75 of these. 50 of these are going to be reimbursed by DEP. This is a defective one. It didn't come with a lid, so I was able to show it to you. So last week, between Wednesday and Sunday, I distributed all of these, all 75 of these, and we also had some kitty litter buckets and other kinds of buckets like that to pair up with the last 25 of these. Now I'm totally out of equipment, and I'm trying to talk up the program and say,
would you do this, but you have to find your own equipment? Use a pot at your sink. This is for the sink. As you create your scraps, you scrape your plate into here, or as you peel a banana or a cucumber or whatever, you put your scraps in here. When this is full, you go down to your garage and fill this. We have a screw-on lid that's odor and animal-proof, and when this is full, you take it to the transfer station. When this is full, this is a 5-gallon bucket. A gallon weighs 7 pounds, so this is going to be 35 pounds. That's about as heavy as I think most people would want to carry. And if we have 50 or 75 people, households bringing in 35 pounds a week, oh, I forget what the math is, but I'm terrible at math and known for that, so, but it would amount.
It's almost a ton of food waste is what it is.
A week?
It's almost a ton, yeah, sure.
Great. I love it. So if we could multiply that by all the households in town, just think how much weight we would get out of our trash, and how much money the town would save, which I know you care about. But what I care about even more than, well, I'm passionate about saving the town money, yes, but I also think that the food energy that's contained in this wasted food could be put back into the compost and then made into a soil amendment that will make plants grow so that farms can use it, people can use it in their gardens, on their lawns, and we don't have to use petroleum to make synthetic fertilizer.
Carol, where does the food waste go from the transfer station? Is it composted there, or
No,
is there a commercial?
No, we don't
vendor?
have room at the
Yeah, I
transfer
wouldn't think
station
so.
to make a compost pile, unfortunately. So we have somebody picking it up and taking it to a farm in Bridgewater. And the cost of doing that is less than the cost of our disposal, including hauling to the incinerator at Wheelbrader, so in Millbury. So that's why we're doing this.
Carol, in your memo to us, you have all the math. Do you want to read it to us, or you can have my copy, or I can read it for you?
Why don't you read it?
All right, it says, if a family of 4 could divert 20 pounds or more of food per week, 100 families over the course of a year would divert a whopping 52 tons away from the trash stream. If the entire Sherborn community, 1,500 households, were to participate, it is conceivable that the town's expensively hauled trash weight could be reduced by 55%. Wow.
Wow is right. So if everybody would pitch in and do their part, we could make a huge difference. And then that money could be spent on other much more important things than trash. You know, trash is, I mean, it's got to be taken care of, but why should we spend our money on trash? So that was part of my mailing. The other part of the mailing was that we have some changes in the way recycling is handled at the transfer station because we have a new contractor. And the new contractor does not want these, which are called aseptic containers, and we have juice boxes, we have soup, we have milk that are packaged in these containers, and these will now go in the commingled stream. I think they were in trash before. Yes, they were in trash before. And these, which are milk cartons, also known as gable tops, these used to be in paper with our old recycling contractor. Now these will also go in commingled. That commingled is plastic, metal, and glass. So don't ask me why this goes with plastic, metal, and glass, but it will. So that's the other part of the mailing that did not go out townwide. And I'm using the magic of television wherever you are to announce this. It's not being announced in the flyers that I distributed about food waste.
So the key part of the message from my perspective is that we can save a fair amount of money for all the taxpayers in the town. Every taxpayer, we have to appropriate every year money to haul the stuff away, and essentially it gets burned somewhere or disposed of somewhere, landfilled somewhere. And if we do the right thing, we are able to improve the environment, we are able to make things safer for our children, preserve our planet, but we also can directly affect our tax bills.
Right. Right. Thank you for mentioning burning, because another thing about turning this food waste, the food energy, into soil amendment is if it goes in the trash, it gets burned in a puff of smoke and just gets wasted. And the recycling committee hates waste. I don't know who doesn't hate waste. And that's our mission, to prevent waste. And I think a lot of people think that recycling is just a lot of trouble and we can't be bothered, but if you think of it as preventing waste, and a CEO in a business wants to prevent waste in their business, everybody wants to prevent waste everywhere. That's what recycling is about. So please do your part to prevent waste and help the environment and help Sherborn's bottom line.
Thanks.
Passionate.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's do this.
Let's do this.
That's perfect, thank you.
Let's do this on the front and then kill the beavers on the back. Okay.
Maybe you can put one in there.
Okay, so we've got, next, I guess we'll go back to consideration of appointment and charges. And we had deleted the Conservation Commission from the appointments, David, is that right?
Right.
Okay.
And that was because the posted attachment, the attachment didn't get posted with the agenda
Okay,
for the Conservation Commission appointments.
okay.
So what you have is a list of election workers from the town clerk. If you remember, we looked at this pretty closely last year.
Are these the same folks?
These are, the only out-of-town person is an employee of the clerk's office. I think last year there was another out-of-town person that caused some problems, and we also, as far as I know, these are all registered voters in Sherborn. There was an issue with being 17 years old or 16 or 17 last year.
Yep.
But these, this is the list that is being put forth by the town clerk for,
Are there an equal number of Democrats and Republicans?
that's the responsibility of the town clerk, but
Doesn't look
it doesn't
like
look it.
Look that way.
So I don't know if that's a requirement.
It's a desired goal of the statute, because when you have statewide elections, you have Republicans and Democrats running against each other.
But usually you would have an active party on both sides that would put a list of names together to submit to the town clerk. I believe she didn't receive any submission from either party, so it's up to the town clerk to come up with a list.
But again, that's why I'm asking, is there roughly,
I think the answer is no, there's not roughly. So. But I don't think that that's our hunt. That's really, like David said, the clerk is the one who pulls this list together.
I understand, but it's the statute's goal.
So how would you deal with that then, Paul, in this situation?
Well, other than
Not,
saying something here that would hopefully encourage the minority party, I guess, in the state to put up more people to participate. It's tough when you have a one-party state, when then you have the ballots being counted by the same party that's also the majority party. And I say that as a Democrat. It's just inherent more legitimacy to the election process if you have both
I understand.
parties agreeing that that's the right count, rather than the same party agreeing in the same count.
The majority on the list is undeclared.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, and then I know you don't mean it this way, I would think I just would say I trust the town clerk to make sure the election's fair. I think we just spent money on a new voting machine to help count the votes, and we've got the list of names we've got, and unless somebody wants to go door to door and ask enrolled Republicans to come out and volunteer or serve as election workers, poll workers, I don't know, there's much we can do right now about that. I would just move for, ask for a motion.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is that regardless of their party affiliation, they're fellow residents of Sherborn for the most part, and one valued employee, so, you know, the integrity of the people is,
Yeah, and I don't
wouldn't
think
question the
I don't think
integrity.
Paul's questioning
I
the
don't think Paul's
integrity,
doing
but
that.
I think it
I-
could be heard that way, and I just, you know,
Yeah.
I don't.
I'm not meaning to
No,
question.
I-
it.
No, I
I'm not
just wanna make
suggesting that either.
clear so that people don't know that that's not
I'm
the
just
case.
saying that, as someone who has an R next to his name, it doesn't bother me that we have a list here compiled by the,
Well, I'm just talking about what the goal of the statute is, the
yeah.
overall,
This is our best
the
effort.
overall plan from the general court's point of view. But that's fine. I mean, there's no one here on this list that I have a problem with, so I'd move approval.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Do we need an equal, we gotta get somebody to count the vote who's neutral, right? 3-0, we're okay.
Yeah, we're all right.
What's the next appointment here, David, that we're gonna work on?
Did you vote that one?
We
Yes.
did.
I'm sorry. The next one, we're moving the Traffic Safety Committee. Last year, they were appointed to a term of 1 year, and I believe the year before they were as well. So we want to get them back to the original intent that's in the bylaw of staggering those terms. So we were working with the person who brought that to our attention, which was Sue Tyler, and she gave me the updated appointment so that we could bring this back to you with staggered appointments.
Okay, I'm not following you,
Okay.
David.
Last year, the whole committee was appointed to a 1-year term.
Because we weren't sure what was going to happen with traffic safety. There was
That's
this
right.
proposal
That's
about
right.
a public safety committee.
But these are 3 proposals to appoint for a 1-year term again.
Right, but in actuality,
The rest of them will
we
be
should
2
restore
years.
it to the bylaw's original intent, which was that their seats would be staggered, spread
Okay.
out.
So how are we doing that with these 3 appointments?
We're not doing these 3 appointments tonight. We're going to
Gotcha.
move them
Okay.
to
That's the part I
August
missed.
7th, and we'll bring in the whole list of the committee with the updated staggered
David,
appointments.
have you, is this a committee that we only asked for incumbents to put themselves up, or was there any other interest or solicitation of interest? I say that because I know there have been people at different meetings with particular interests, including some newcomers to
Right.
town who might be interested in serving. I don't know if you did any kind of.
We
outreach.
advertised even the seats that were up for reappointment, and we didn't receive one on traffic safety.
Have you been working with the chair, just in terms of the configuration of the committee at this stage? Have you?
Yeah, it's been
Something
a,
I saw, you still hadn't heard from him. That might have been old.
well, it's been
That
a
was the
little,
last time, yeah, I remember that.
we haven't done anything over the summer.
Do we have an engineer on the committee?
On traffic safety?
Well, they're all
I don't know
engineers.
if anyone's
I think if
in,
you're talking about somebody with a certificate.
Yeah.
I didn't get
I still think it would be important for you to just at least have a conversation with the chair, just to talk about, get a sense from him, his vision for the future of this, and whether there should be new blood recruited or otherwise at the same time.
Well, I think, I mean,
Maybe you've had that
we've
conversation.
routinely told them to recruit, and I think we've all tried to recruit.
And that's not saying anything bad about anybody
Right, right.
already there. I just,
Right, but Brad did confirm that he seemed to be happy about restoring the staggered terms.
Yeah, last year, four people for the appointments, that should have been 3-year appointments, that should have been a 1-year, they all became 1 year last year, the year before there was 2. And so if you look to put everybody back, that there should be 2 for 3 years, 2 for 2 years, and then 1 for, in order to get back to the schedule. So we went through the books, the appointment books, and took the original schedule as if they had been, and so that will be done next week.
So-
next meeting, and Brad is all...
Because you do it, that's a fairer way to do it, is what you're
Correct,
saying.
it's to see what they had originally been, so nobody's getting anything new or getting an extra 3-year term, or it's back to what it was. And Brad was all, he's aware of that.
I'm not aware of anyone stepping forward at a traffic safety meeting to volunteer as well, but
Yeah.
it's a,
No, once you've been to one of those meetings, you wouldn't volunteer. I'm talking about people who
No,
have
they
never
meet
been.
quite often,
Well, do
and they
attend,
deal with a
yeah.
lot of, they deal with a lot of stuff, and
Right.
That's a tough
Political-
topic, and it gets
Right.
controversial.
you know, we'll continue advertising them and posting them on the website and continue looking, and maybe in September when people are back in town, and we might get some.
Well, again, I want to
But
put the
they're-
emphasis
they're all
on
gonna be-
getting an engineer, because so much of the work that that committee does is engineering, and we've spent a fair amount of money, and we're constantly looking for engineers to hire to look at different projects, because a lot of the stuff is engineering dependent.
Yeah.
So this is a committee that's natural for an engineer to be on. And there are a lot of engineers in town, and sometimes when we have committees that need people with particular backgrounds, you actually have to call up people. I know many times I try to recruit lawyers to serve on committees, and you have to call a lawyer
Call them, yeah.
and kind of twist their arm about really they need to serve, and that,
It goes a long way.
it goes a long way. I think it would really help this committee and help the community to have somebody with engineering background who can look at engineering plans and provide
It's a good
all
point.
kinds.
We have Sean Colleen, he's a mechanical engineer, but he's an engineer, and he's also on the fire department, so we do have.
And Ed Wagner's a,
And Ed Wagner is part of
Ex officio.
our committee and stuff, and we have the police chief and the fire chief. And
but there is one vacant seat that we could specifically specify. You know, I'll talk to Brad and see if he wants to specifically
Yeah.
recruit an engineer.
So I think Paul's point's good. I think it's great to learn about Sean. Here's something, while we're on the topic of appointments, though, should we be encouraging, and that's not to say anything bad about people who serve as chair, but a number of the committees that we appoint, it seems that they have the same person as chair year after year after year after year, which is not saying anything bad about the chair and their service. It's just that we tend to shuffle the deck every year.
We do instruct them each year that at the first full meeting where everyone's in attendance, they should vote those positions.
Which they probably do, and they keep,
Yeah.
you know, who's willing to step up and be chair, and
Right.
so that happens.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it just seems to me that a number of our committees, you know, Brad, he's probably been chair for 17 years. Maybe he wants to continue to be chair, but
Right.
I would encourage that a little mixing up of the deck is probably a healthy thing. Because when you're chair, at least from my experience, you know, there's a different perspective to things than when you're not. I kind of like it when I'm not, but.
Well, I was going
But-
to say that, Peter. I think there's probably a number of people who wouldn't serve on a committee if they thought they had a chance of being appointed chair,
I understand.
because tends to be, you know, more work associated with it. Just knowing from being on the zoning board, being on the planning board, the chair tends to, you know, get more than the average amount of
Yes.
the behind-the-scenes work or the in-between meetings type work. And there are a number of people who are really happy to go to meetings every couple of weeks or every month, but they really don't have the time or the interest to spend a lot of time in between those
Yeah.
meetings. So, I mean, and, you know, with Brad in particular, I've seen him in action at those meetings. I think he does a masterful job of running
So do
a
I,
meeting
yeah.
and of it kind of pulling all the
And
threads.
I wasn't really picking on that committee, you know.
Yeah, no, I know,
you
but I mean,
understand.
I think we are fortunate, at least on many of the committees, to have really good chairs. You know, I'm not saying anything about the Board of Selectmen, but other committees.
Other than the Board of Selectmen,
Right.
historically, yes.
I think Brad is wonderful.
So do I. No,
Delighted
I
that
just
he's agreeing
wanted to use
to serve
that
and
to have
continue.
Yeah,
this discussion
that's-
briefly.
It's a good point. And you also, the other reason to do that, the same reason you do it in business, is to try to groom leadership for
That's
the
right.
future, people who are going to move out of town, retire, step off, or
Right.
you know, become sick or whatever. And you want to have somebody who's at least got some experience behind them who's willing to step up and serve. So,
Okay.
So what I recommend in this list, these are all people who are, I believe these are all reappointments. I'm not sure which ones are new names, I didn't mark them.
I thought you just said they were going over to August 7th.
I would eliminate A, B, and C.
So we're just dealing with D through H.
Okay,
Right,
so we've got George Fisk, Sam Niles, George Fisk for a 3-year period to the Agricultural Commission.
So moved.
Okay, Sam Niles to the Agricultural Commission for a period of 2 years.
So moved.
George Yared to the Agricultural Commission for a period of 2 years.
So moved.
Okay, William Miller, Art Crandall, and Tom Oberst to the Cable TV Advisory Committee, each for a term of 3 years.
So moved.
And Phyllis Braun and Doug Brody to the Council on Aging, each for a period of 3 years.
So moved.
Second, all of the motions that Paul made.
Okay.
Cable TV advisory, term of 3 years, expired in 6/15/17.
Yeah, 2017.
Yep, okay. So we have a motion and it's seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. All right, so we just appointed a bunch of volunteers.
That's
Thank you
great.
very much to all these people.
Marvelous.
How many members are on the Agricultural Commission?
5?
9, 5?
Yeah.
It's 9 though, right?
I'm
think it's-
curious if the fact that we're appointing 1 3-year and 2 2-years, did people step down, or how did we get to the point where we're having terms of different lengths?
They were, I'd have to go back and look at when they were, how they've been staggered.
Okay. When they were appointed, it was to replace somebody who stepped down?
Correct, and the original committee, when it was created, in the beginning, there was an awful lot of changes, and then it was a select one appointment, then another, and all of a sudden, we actually had for 1 year, there were 6 people. It's only supposed to be 5. So this is back to 5. One person that was up chose not to re-enlist.
But with these 3-year appointment and the 2 2-year appointments, we
Yeah.
still have 2 others who are incumbents who don't expire this year. Is that-
Yeah,
okay.
there's a list of
Fine,
committees.
good. Yeah,
Five.
that's right, good.
And so there are 3 other members of the committee.
Okay, it just was,
It's 5
it
members.
was unclear. Okay. And John Dowse's, it says here, John Dowse's commission expired this year, but we didn't just vote him in?
He was in at a previous meeting
He was,
for a
okay.
3-year term of till
We
2017.
voted him in, good, okay, just checking. Excellent.
Can you do it, David, a different color or something? Because when these, of the highlights that you do in this
Oh,
I
yeah,
like
no
to
question.
highlight in
underlying
black.
schedule, can't read the highlights. Comes out black.
David worked for the CIA before he started with Town of Sherborn, and that's
Yeah,
what's
well,
going on.
he's dealing with mostly lawyers, so I think
Basically, any of those lines that are completely all the way out,
we've already done.
those are on this page in the
Okay.
front.
Oh, okay, got it.
That's why their names.
This is
are-
like a Ukrainian
I
separatist.
tried to read through it, but I couldn't.
I didn't even
I
catch
didn't go
that,
back to
yeah.
my computer.
There actually are names under the black.
Yeah, I know,
First I
yeah.
thought it was, everything was blacked out.
No,
They're
there's
from
names
prison
there,
is what
yeah.
that is. So, okay, so we have a couple more appointments. We'll do the next one. David Williams, Town Administrator, to the position of Treasurer, effective August 1st, 2014, until a successor is appointed or elected, and to the position of Privacy Information Officer for an indefinite term, and to the position of West Suburban Health Group Representative for an indefinite term.
So moved.
I'd like to make it
You
recommended.
described that? Yeah.
Well, the current elected treasurer is retiring as
Yes.
of July 31st. It's been standard in some towns that that'll fall back to the town administrators. That's what we're doing. And the statute refers to temporary treasurer. So I would rather you make it appointing to
treasurer.
the position of temporary treasurer.
Okay, so I'll amend that discussion. You amend the motion,
Yes,
Peter?
I amend
Okay.
that, thank you. For the amendment.
Okay. And one question for you, David, was, did the accountants come in and do the audit, or are they engaged to do that audit?
They are engaged. We signed an
As of
agreement with
next
them.
week.
They will come in after he leaves the office.
Okay, so after the 31st, they'll
Yeah,
come in and...
and we'll have that, I believe they said, by the end of the month.
Okay, so Pete's happy, you're happy, everything's
Yeah,
good?
yeah, we negotiated a better price so that for the same cost, we will get this transitional audit plus the next one, which would be moving from me to whoever the next treasurer is.
Great, that's good. Elliot, you had a question?
Yeah, how are you going to go about getting a new treasurer? What's your procedure?
Well, the procedure for the interim is for David to engage a consultant to do the treasury work, and for David himself to be an administrator of the office and to work with the assistant treasurer and such consultants as he needs to. Next spring, there will be a town election for a new treasurer. And if somebody steps forward between now and next spring and indicates an interest in becoming the treasurer, and they have the requisite skills, we may very well want to appoint them and relieve David of the job. But at this point, no one like that has come forward, as far as I know.
I have at other meetings asked that the position be advertised for people to come forward and have some kind of interview process so that we who have some responsibility, well, to use other words, there's millions of dollars of tax dollars that come to the town of Sherborn, tax dollars and other things. And I think we have a responsibility to make sure that that money is properly handled by someone who's competent. And the way to get there is not to just say, let somebody come forward. I think that we should be actively posting this, actively getting applications. So let's say we get 20 applications. Let's screen them. Let's get them down to 3 or 4. Let's have the Board of Selectmen interview them in public. Let's have the public have a chance to have input on it. And then let's appoint someone to be treasurer for the remaining period up to the election, with the understanding that that person would go forward and be elected. But they have gone through a process in which they've been vetted. Their qualifications have been vetted. Their background has been checked. They don't have anything there that would lead us to be concerned about the millions of dollars that they'll be handling. I think we owe it to the community to take a very proactive role here.
Yeah, I mean, I think after Pete was in office for 30 years, and at least in my time in town, I think he had one contested election. It's not like the town is bursting at the seams with people who want to be our town treasurer. I'd be amazed if we got 2 applications, let alone 20, but it's a good point, Paul, and I think, if somebody steps forward, or if David can find a way to advertise that position locally, I think the word is out that, we're going to need a new treasurer next spring, but if there's another way to get that word out, remember, we're talking about people who are town residents for this position.
Right,
so
but
it's
many
a limited-
people don't want to go through an election process. They don't know what it means. They don't know the campaign finance laws. It's all a very intimidating process.
Well, if they don't know the
But if we-
campaign finance laws and they're afraid of them, I don't know that we want them as a treasurer.
Well, those are different skills. The treasurer doesn't, I mean, we're talking about people who know how to add a column of numbers on more than one occasion and come to the same total. Those kind of skills, which may not necessarily be the same skills as knowing how to fill out a campaign.
Yeah, no, I think we need a lot more skill in a treasurer. We're going to want somebody who understands how to invest the town's money and how to maximize the return on the town's money and make sure the money's available when we need it, all of which Pete did well for, his years here, and,
So what's
now
wrong
we're in a transition.
with actually paying for an ad?
But
And
again,
actually
Paul, I
recruiting.
think the question is, what will we be advertising the person to do? Because part of our whole strategy here, that we've all, I think, gone through a couple of times now, is to take the opportunity here with this interim approach to evaluate the structure of that office back there in the corner, which includes the treasurer, the town accountant, and their personnel, to see what this treasurer person should be. And out of this process, we may decide, continue on as is, which today, that's all we could advertise is status quo type of duties, versus a whole, a better structure that's more efficient in the better interests of the community.
I'm not
So that's
talking
all.
now, I'm talking,
Okay, so you're talking, when
we've appointed this guy,
yeah, so we're going to,
our town administrator, we have faith in him, he's going to go forward, he's going to do all of that. All I'm saying is, I don't want to get to the spring
understood.
and have nothing.
We were going to get a report back in some short period of time.
90 days, we
90
told the
days.
consultants.
And at that point, then I think that's when we seriously have this discussion, Paul, about going to the market, if you will, and trying to find somebody that is willing to step up to what we then may think is what the duties will be of that
Yeah,
position.
except remember, we don't define the treasurer's duty, the statutes do and the town does. So we could say whatever we wanted, and we could get somebody who came in here and said, nope, I'm going to do it exactly how Pete did it. and completely unravel.
I don't know that. I don't know. I
You
mean,
could
there
also
are
get somebody
statutes,
who
but-
you've gone through the process and you appoint, and then somebody else just runs against them and
Right.
wins, and it's
That's
all
true.
for naught.
So I mean, so
But
there's a
there's
lot of
always-
stuff up there. But I think your point is we can, through whatever David figures out and with his consultants and,
Yeah.
through
Yeah.
discussion here,
Yeah.
we can recommend a structure that may
Correct.
be the same and may be different, and then strongly advise the new treasurer to follow that structure, work through the budget process to help ensure that there
Yeah.
is a structure like that. But I don't think we can control it. I just,
Well, some parts of it, I would hope that we can control, processing certain types of transactions.
You're talking about
account
the
payroll
actual
and all that.
duties as
The
opposed to the
duties, that's
structure.
correct,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Okay.
But also, I think we can help the community by vetting the candidates, interviewing the candidates, and then actually appointing somebody, so that there would be someone who could go forward with the job, whether it's elected or appointed,
Yeah,
or
right,
however you
right.
structure it, that has been vetted in a professional way, rather than just leaving it.
To the whims of the, elected.
Yeah, I mean, when you say vetted, you don't mean the three of us vetting, you're talking about a professional vetting
No,
process?
no, I'm talking about advertising for the position, getting the candidates in, yes, checking the background, if that involves a professional looking at it, yes. If that involves a professional consultant helping us interview, but you interview all the candidates, you make sure that people are qualified. What we want at the end of the day, because this is handling the people's money, I don't think we want to just let chaos or who happens to be unemployed and has a time to do the job come forward and run and be at one of these meetings where, gee, nobody wants to do it, I'll do it, type of situation. If we take the bull by the horns, however this thing ends up being organized and restructured, I don't think we should just leave it adrift. I feel a responsibility to the public to first of all, throw it open to everybody, get the candidates in, and have a competitive process, and
So in
find
your
someone
mind,
who's qualified.
sometime before next election, if
Yeah, oh,
in
yeah.
fact there is an
Not
election,
tomorrow.
sometime before next election,
Yes.
we'll have engaged somebody to fill the position of treasurer on an interim basis,
Yes,
who we believe, through whatever vetting process we think makes the best sense, is most suited for the job, and whatever, there may be an appointed or an elected situation, I think, by next year, it'll be
Definitely an
elected,
elected
right?
situation,
Yeah, it'll
yeah.
be elected, because we won't have that, it has to go through town meeting to change that.
like
Yeah.
like a simple thing like a Corey check,
Yeah,
a simple thing like a Corey criminal offender record check requires someone to sign a consent, then it has to go through a process, and it will tell us whether someone has ever had any criminal background. Unless you have that Corey check with the consent of the applicant, those
But the-
Corey checks don't happen in an election at all.
Well, they do when the person goes to
Because
get
they're
bonded.
And they have to be
Yeah,
bonded by statute.
But that's
Yeah.
after they're elected.
right. But I
the
don't,
other thing that I'm not sure what I think about is trying to pick the person to be elected.
Kingmaker, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that.
I don't think I can be involved in recruiting an elected candidate, but I can post, that there's
Temporary
something.
treasurer position. You can post that position.
Yeah, I could post that, yeah.
Yes, the idea is
Sherborn is
that,
looking for a temporary treasurer to serve from whenever they're hired until May 15th or whatever the date of our election is.
Right, I
Correct.
could do.
Yeah,
Yes.
I get that. yeah.
who would be a resident, but
Yeah.
it would give us a chance to vet the person. Because again, at the end of the day, what's the town's budget, 25 million? There's $25 million going through this person's hands.
That's right.
And so
Well, it goes through our hands, too. The buck stops here every time a warrant's approved.
There's more than 25
And there's
million
more. Yeah,
that goes through the treasurer's hands.
yeah.
When you count the employee deductions,
All that stuff.
the trusts that are sitting out there, other investment accounts.
Right.
All right, so so we have a motion, I guess,
Yes, we
to
do.
appoint David to the position of temporary treasurer, privacy officer, and West Suburban Health Group representative. So we have a motion, and do we have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
if anyone out here in TV land is interested in this position, they should contact the town administrator.
that's right.
And he can have a talk with them and do some more fine tuning.
Yes, Elliot makes a good point. If anybody happens to be watching this who is looking for or interested in being the town's temporary treasurer, they can contact David Williams, who we just appointed to that job, and David can talk to them about what that would entail. Thanks, Elliot. Good suggestion.
Well, we don't know what that would entail, and it's at some point in the future. Just to clarify.
Yeah, so the next appointment is Deborah Reynolds as administrative assistant for payroll. Oh, who is the administrative assistant for payroll, to the position of West Suburban Health Group representative alternate for an indefinite term. So we just appointed David to be the West Suburban Health Group representative. What does that position do, David?
Basically, they're the person that goes to the meetings of West Suburban to stay educated about what's going on
On the health
with
plan?
the health plan, yeah.
Okay, and so Deborah has volunteered to do that.
Yes, I've talked to her about that. Yeah.
Good, well, no, that's good. So do we have a motion for that?
So moved.
A second?
Second, yes. Just a comment that I think it's important that we actually go to these things, not just to do these appointments, but actually to be active in the organization. Although we're a small community, we're a smart community, and there's a lot that we can add to this.
Well, it's in our best interest, because that's a big line item in the budget, and it's the one that one of the ones that increases much higher than 2.5%, so at a much higher rate. So it's constantly eating up the budget piece of pie.
It's true. We got a motion and a second. All in favor of appointing Deborah Reynolds? Okay, that's unanimously approved. And now we're on to Public Safety Committee charge. I know I see town council in the room, so.
Basically, on the, we had an agenda item before approving the Public Safety Committee charge. This amendment is just to clarify that it's the Board of Health designee from that board or staff, that it's not just a designee at large that they could appoint for the seat. So it's just clarifying the language.
But I didn't see that in my packet.
It's in there.
Where's,
Looks like this.
yeah, I'm trying to find what it is, because I think I have a comment on that.
I have public safety charge, is that it?
Yes. So in the middle, the top is what was approved. The middle of the page is what are the changes that I'm proposing tonight, and then the bottom is what the final version would look like.
Yeah, I'm not finding mine, David, but I'm sure you gave it to me. It's just
You're going
in this
to pass this to
mess.
Here.
Thanks, okay. And so,
Can we say that the employed staff?
yeah, I was going to say the same thing, or just the elected board members and not have staff for the Board of Health.
Right.
Okay.
You want,
Yeah,
You wanna make that amendment?
I would want to delete the words "or its staff" after the phrase for the Board of Health that says "from among the elected board members."
It's just, my concern is that we're not sure legally what
Yeah,
is staff,
Gotcha.
and we're spending time with council trying to figure out what does the word mean, what's an employee, what's a
Yep.
independent contractor. This
Yeah,
is
and I just, at this point, I'm not comfortable with having that language in there.
right.
Okay.
Okay.
So, do we have a motion with that amendment?
Second. Oh, can the same apply to council on aging designee from among the appointed council members or its staff? Is it clear who the staff is of the council on aging?
No.
It's not?
I mean, the original one that I had put forward was the director. I mean, it specified the director.
So could we say,
Or its
appointed
director.
council
Those
members
were-
or its director? Could we say that instead of staff?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Okay, so we have as amended, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor? That's the oops, sorry, Paul. Oh.
Thanks.
Don't step on his toe.
No, I just almost knocked over his drink.
Oop.
His iced tea or whatever that is. Okay.
This is iced tea, it's not a drink.
I wanted to amend that, the iced tea, just because it's in a funny shaped bottle.
Diane, I have to sign this, right? You have to remind me. So I'm signing as clerk.
It
This
should
is
say
to whom?
temporary, though. It should, yeah, it's in there, okay, good.
Okay, so it says, "This to certify that on July 24th, 2014, the Board of Selectmen unanimously approved the appointment of David R. Williams as temporary town treasurer effective August 1st, 2014, for an indefinite term until a successor is either appointed or elected." Great. Okay, I did what I had to do.
Great. Okay, next on the agenda, Wildlife Management Committee, select a date to hear an update from the committee.
Yeah.
What's your suggestion?
Well, at one time, you requested to bring them in with the intern who had started
Yeah.
doing the deer counting. The
Yeah.
intern has a job, and he's on the Cape, and he's not able to come back,
Did
so...
he write a report, David, or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I can convey all that information to them and to the selectmen. I just wanted to know what the time frame was that we should tell them that we're looking at bringing them in. Right.
After the summer's over.
Right now, yeah, it'd be at least September at the
Second meeting in
earliest.
September or something like
Right,
that. What do you
right.
think?
Yeah, I think so, but you know what, I don't know if it's a wildlife committee, but one thing that, while we're on this topic about wildlife, that I saw recently in the news, you know, Worcester is west of us. Our winds typically come from the west. They've been fighting that longhorn, Asian longhorn beetle thing, and it's back. You know, they had to tear down a bunch of trees. So I guess I would ask that we ought to be proactive on that, because at some point, the winds are blowing our way, and everybody loves their trees. So it seems to me, whether it's Wildlife Management Committee to put that as a subset of something they ought to be thinking about, or else we got to figure something out as a town.
Who pays the bill for the mosquito control?
Maybe that's the place. But somebody in this town needs to have a game plan for if any one of those little critters shows up.
Certainly, we have the Town Forest Committee representative here, so
Tree warden.
The tree warden.
we ought to have Town Forest take a look at it. We ought to have conservation with regard to their properties.
Yeah.
Like in the Worcester area, they have the foresters and they have, you know, the city people go around, they look, they find the trees. Once they find it, they'll take out,
Like a bunch of trees, right?
they'll take them all.
Yeah,
They'll take a whole neighborhood.
yeah.
You cannot move any trees. Like if you go to up north, to Maine, Vermont, New
You
Hampshire.
can't bring your firewood.
You cannot bring firewood to a neighboring state.
Oh,
They got the sign right, I think it's Connecticut, somebody's got the sign right when you go into the state, don't bring in any firewood.
Right.
But they also had some in Cambridge 2 years ago. There was a spot in there and around Mount Auburn Cemetery that was in there. So yes, it's been there. There's some places where they've already eradicated it, and it's just a matter of awareness as to what you're looking for.
well, maybe it is tree work,
As
but it's
far
just
as the
something
tree
that I think
wardens.
Yeah.
bite us in the
Well,
butt.
we should know that people are aware of it, so I think even just mentioning it now is good. And
Yeah.
But can we, second meeting in September for the Wildlife Committee, David?
Yes.
Okay.
No wood chips.
Yeah, if we got rid of bark mulch, we would solve a lot of this problem.
Working on it.
Yeah.
We got a good price on Worcester bark.
No.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, town business report, David? Town administrator report?
Yeah, I want to run through, you know, I've been meeting with Pete, we've met with the bank about the treasurer, change of treasurer, we've been updating signature cards. Right now, I don't foresee any major problems. We've worked with a consultant who's going to be coming in to help as a reference for me and for Heather.
Okay.
And it's going as well as could be expected right
And
now.
we're
Is
still,
it bonded, or you,
That's, paperwork's been submitted, yeah.
and we're still within budget, we're doing well like
Yes.
that? Okay,
Yeah.
great, perfect.
Under the TA report, I wanted to just mention a couple of things that last week we had handed out a few policies, draft policies. We've given those, I revisited those policies, talked to employees, and have given them till next Wednesday to weigh back in on those. And then we'll bring them to the August 7th meeting for discussion. And I would expect the selectmen to send their comments regarding those policies
And just be
directly to me.
specific what those are. I've got 3 pieces of paper here, the planning and budget
One
for
is
computer and
just-
software.
One is just a memo from me regarding the computer policy. The second one is a department head leave notification form. And then the actual policy that would require a vote from the Board of Selectmen is this town-wide mailings policy. The other policy that I'm still working on that I got to get to you and out to the employees is this professional development policy
Okay.
that's,
So before tonight's meeting, just, late this afternoon, you had handed us at the last meeting your initial drafts of these 4 policies that you just
Right.
described. And we're looking for comments from us, and I know I didn't provide any comments. But I looked at them, the 3, like you've given us 3 new ones drafts to look at, or I had 3 drafts to look at. And so I pulled out the ones you'd given us previously, and it looked like you really, you pulled out some of the meat of some of the stuff that you originally had. So I would recommend that all 3 of us look at what you originally
Back at the
had,
original, yeah.
what the new versions are, to see whether there are any issues that we have. And when we have that discussion, I think
Right.
because one of the objectives of some of these policies, again, back to the, you keep hearing me say the buck stops here, but part of it is to help try and, be cost-effective in what we're doing and everything. And take, for example, the policy on use of computer consultant guy to
Right.
come in and fix hardware and software issues.
right.
Having that centralized, like we centralize using the lawyers, makes sense to me,
Right.
so that there's an overview of what's going on. Even though we might budget in the individual departments, the buck still stops up here
Right.
and through you sooner or later, because you'll be signing off on the warrants.
Right.
And the reason I pick on this one, particular one, is why I think some centralization of the authority over the spending or the use of that consultant. And also, I would argue that you wouldn't be consultant-specific in that policy, you'd be general.
Right.
But the thing is, I'm probably one who looks at these warrants more closely than most people have sitting up at this table in the last few years.
I provided comments.
And, no, so, good for you. But what I'm saying is that when I look at these warrants, the request for payment for various invoices more closely than others may have, sometimes I see stuff that just floors me. And for example, one of the things that floored me in the past I just can't shake was we paid this consultant, I don't know, $120 to come in to plug in a computer because somebody's computer wasn't working. So that's why I like the idea of centralization. It was last year, but it was like, you got to be kidding.
Well, I think that's what we're
That's other
trying to
people's
button
money.
down, is have somebody making a call for that, and then it showing up on a warrant, expecting it to be paid out of our
That's right.
our
Yeah,
budget.
Wow,
so-
that's
but it's all
hilarious.
happening.
Somebody's turning on their computer, it doesn't turn on,
No,
so
it's
they
not
call a
plugged in.
consultant, because it's not plugged in.
Right, but
They call a consultant.
but the policy,
Years of.
the policy gives them that right, so
Yeah.
we'll have to look
The
at the whole
latest
policy.
version of the policy, not the prior version.
Okay.
The latest version, I was referred back to consider the employees. The latest version is what I believe will not cause a lot of hate and discontent in
Yeah,
implementing.
that's the other part of it. So that's part of our discussion. So I just want
Yeah.
to, I encourage us to all review the process that you've gotten to where you're at.
Right,
With
right.
whatever we're discussing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we probably should bring back the whole computer policy around budget time when we start looking
Yeah, yeah.
at budgets.
Yeah, and this policy isn't about how they use it. That's in our personnel administration plan. There are policies on
no,
computer
I was going to
usage.
suggest that we centralize appropriations. So rather than have, for example, a computer budget in everybody's
Right.
budget, we have one item for computers,
Oh, I agree.
one item for professional development, one item for mailings, all as part of the town administrator's budget. That solves everything.
Yeah, you made this suggestion before. It sounded like a good idea. I think we were all on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you brought in, anybody from the finance department and said, how much did we spend on this consultant? You'd be weeks before they get you an answer.
We can't do it with phones or electric bills either, though.
That's
so-
correct. Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what consultant you're talking about.
The-
You mean the
the- this
IT?
com- the IT
Oh, right,
guy.
right,
The
right.
Yeah.
plug-in consultant, the guy who we...
Yeah, I mean,
It's nothing
certainly,
against him, it's nothing against anybody, in the town organization here.
Right.
Everybody's pretty good, but it just is,
right. No, there
all
should
over the
be
place.
a certain department that's technology or
Yeah.
tech services or something like that, where all those expenses are being paid out of as
push
opposed
for that,
to
Paul, this budget cycle.
Yep, yep.
distributed through all of the
Because that would cure,
departments.
I mean, all these
Yes.
policies trying to regulate everything, it's just a lot of red tape.
That's
But
right.
if you all have it in one place and somebody has to approve it, that actually is much more effective.
Right.
Because someone has to justify, someone has to say, hey,
But David may want a policy so that it's not always, he doesn't always has to fight every single
oh, yeah.
issue and create a new, so it's still helpful to have the policy written.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so update on town administrator job description,
Okay.
David?
So I also wanted to note that North Main Street was paved, and it was, this was the project that was bumped from last fall. The original estimated completion was 2 days. It took 2.5 days. And as far as I know, the longest complaint we received was about waiting about 7 minutes.
I happened to drive through there in the middle of the day to go to the dump, and I was surprised at how quickly I was moved on through,
Oh, good.
how short the line was.
Good.
And, the surface you had to go over to get to wherever you were going was
Right.
passable.
The
It was-
surface
It was
is,
well done.
I drove on it today, it's, the
I
surface
know,
is
it's
beautiful.
beautiful, yeah. they did a
Especially
fine
coming
job.
south on that road that.
But the
they got a little-
police, the police detail, our guys were doing a good job of directing. It was, could be bedlam in that situation.
So
I think
having
the first
fun.
day, Neil McPherson was out there, and, I don't know, John Dowse or something was helping
Right.
and all that.
Fire department was
So the fire
supplementing the,
department-
right.
So I was having fun with our friends in Natick, because it's a beautiful road right up to the Natick border. Now, it looks pretty shabby up there in
Yeah,
Natick.
yeah.
It's-
Too bad they
it's
couldn't
rough.
have filed that bump off a little bit. It's nice to drive to Natick now without getting seasick.
It's a long time coming, so.
I also sent out a press release about, regarding the farm pond management plan. We had noted, they were in last meeting, and noted the preliminary results about that were positive. And I just wanted to give an update that was written up by the company that's doing the management plan, just giving them a heads up that they're going to be out there in August again. And I thought it was a credible news item for a slow news day, to say that Farm Pond is pristine and it's being taken care of, so. And I think we put copies of that.
They were in our mailboxes, I think,
Okay,
yeah.
right. Also on the agenda, we had to look at an update on the town administrator job description bylaw change. I was still working on it this week, so it didn't make it into your packets. There's a lot of information there, so I don't know if you want to just go right to the last page, or you want me to
Sure.
give a brief summary of, well, basically the bylaw, 2013 annual town meeting voted to form this town governance committee. The town governance committee worked for a year and brought several amendments back, including basically a change to the town administrator, what's referred to as the job description in the bylaw. I don't think that had been adjusted since 1986. Some of the concerns I had were about were the town administrator's responsibilities expanded, or were they more restricted? By having this stuff in the bylaw, there's going to be less gray area, but it still looks like things are very decentralized. And it places the town administrator's role in, makes it purely administrative. It's not necessarily the personnel, like in a town manager plan, where all personnel would be reporting to the town manager. This is still, keeps the management of the offices and the personnel within that offices in those separate departments. And it places the responsibility of implementing rules and regulations for procurement, personnel, and
So David, just
facilities, I'm sorry.
Talking, we recruited you and hired you because we were going down the road of a strong town administrator. And I did ask for you to do this analysis, which I haven't looked at, and I know it's a difficult
Right,
one.
right.
Partly I asked for you to do this because we're in this 30-day comment period, but
Right.
effective August 1st, your new role as voted by the voters becomes effective. So this was also to prepare for being ready to hit the ground running.
Right.
And what you're describing briefly to me suggests that it's gone less strong.
Well,
I mean, I'm looking for your interpretation of what you think, because we also have a contract with you which refers to a document that's part of your job description, which I know the governance task force had used in coming up with the article that they brought
Right.
forth at the town meeting. So I hope all the, hope all of the pieces of the puzzle are,
I guess I don't, it's hard to say whether it's less strong or not, because it does, it clearly identifies the employees that I'm now responsible for
Yeah.
appointing.
yep.
But in that process, it takes and clearly identifies the employees that I'm not supervising anymore, and empowers those bodies, Council on Aging, Conservation Commission, that their offices and the employees there are under their authority, because there's some statutory authority there.
So you've consulted with legal counsel on interpretation of some of these
Right.
types of issues. There are still remaining some gray areas or perhaps subject to interpretation, would you
Right.
say?
Right. Yeah, so, I mean, we're still looking at it. There's nothing that's going to be changing as of day one.
So this was,
but-
this was the bylaw that the town government task force put forward, right?
Yeah.
To the,
Yeah.
right, to change the position,
And the Attorney General basically approved that
right.
change, but the clerk said there's a 30-day
Yeah, and I'm
period.
just,
Right.
because I'm really troubled by this bullet point, I guess it wasn't something I saw.
Which one?
It's hard, when you look at the words in the bylaw, it's kind of hard to understand functionally how it works, but David has analyzed that, but the third bullet on the next last page, will anything really change in town operations? The third bullet says, the accountability of the town administrator operating under the Board of Selectmen for managing day-to-day operations of the town is now more limited, which I guess is okay, so it means that you have more discretion.
More defined.
Well, are you saying you have more discretion to do things without checking always with the Board of Selectmen first, right?
Right,
So
right,
that's good.
right.
And then it says, though, an independent operation of departments is more entrenched in being decentralized. I did not think that
That's
was the
where we were
purpose of
headed.
this change.
Right.
And being more decentralized is going to be more expensive and more time
Well,
consuming.
that's how I see things, and,
Okay.
and maybe I should be reporting back after 90 days into the process, but my concern all along was that when you put into the bylaw where the town administrator can be involved and where he can't, then you're empowering somebody other than the town administrator.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Because it says where he can't, is what you're saying.
right. I could give you an example, like, right now, before this takes effect, there are positions in departments that the Board of Selectmen can lay claim to, because they are, say it's an administrative assistant position in a department. Those are gone
Well,
under
we can
this.
lay claim to those under statute, current statute, and statute trumps everything, from a layman's understanding.
Well, if it's not specified in statute, then it goes to the bylaw, and the bylaw is basically saying that the positions within that department, or the town administrator acting under the Board of Selectmen, is now not the authority for those positions.
Yeah.
They are now under their statutory
Well, I mean,
body.
It's conceivable, so you have operational summary page, and I haven't looked at it, but we might have a different interpretation than your interpretation.
Right, right.
Right?
Yeah.
So this is a very important thing for us to really look at carefully, look at where
Right.
you were before, because it helps, I mean, part of it is to ensure you have a good sense of where your responsibilities lie
Well,
and authorities. That's what it's all about.
well, I think when, even in the interview process, I said regardless of whether, it ends up being the strong town administrator or anything else, a good town administrator will figure out how to get things done.
That's right. I
So-
saw a line in there, you had that, right?
Using that logic, I'll continue to do that, and it empowers me with some rights on personnel, procurement, and facilities.
You may also go through this and decide it's a good interim step, and in December or November or whatever, you've got a few months under your belt, and you go back to the government task force and you say, this is what's good about what we did last year, and this is where it
Right.
falls short, and these are the changes I recommend in order to make
Right.
the town administrator position, more efficient, more effective, less
Right.
controversial or whatever.
But the path that was being headed for the strong town administrator was placing personnel under the town administrator. This places the administrative authority to enact rules and regulations on how those departments should function and how they should manage their employees. It's just a little
Subtle
different.
It's not
Difference.
direct,
It's not managing the employees,
Yeah.
nor having a say in the management of those departments. It's
So we still always have the budget say and the warrants.
Yeah, well,
say and so
this
forth.
won't necessarily change, yeah, we have the warrants say, we don't necessarily
Right.
have the budget say, and that's a good question, whether this impacts the budgets that you control, we control.
well, you could make a claim that the Conservation Commission and Council on Aging budgets should not be under the Board of Selectmen if you have no say in how those funds are expended once they're appropriated, and you have no management of the staff, the hiring, termination, et cetera.
And that's what you think this does?
I know that does, because it's in statute that the, Council on Aging has
Its own
statutory authority.
yeah.
Conservation, and it's different, because the Council on Aging can hire whatever staff it needs to carry out its mission under the statute, with,
As long as it has the budget for it.
right, within the appropriated funds. Under Conservation, they're tasked with hiring the agent. So right now, the Conservation Commission is looking at splitting that agent position into an agent position and an administrative
All within
position.
budget, yeah.
In the current year, the selectmen could make claim that we have involvement in that part-time admin position. Under the new bylaw changes, that's clearly placed under the Conservation
Conservation.
Commission.
Because conservation has a statute, is that why?
Yeah, well, it clearly says that those positions are not under my authority. So if it's not under my authority, it makes
Well, I
it
thought
under their
conservation
authority.
wasn't on the list there, but back to that second to last page, your last bullet point on there is key, and I think that's what you referred to earlier, is the town administrator will need to find creative ways within its administrative authority in the areas of facilities, personnel, and procurement to affect change or implement goals of the Board of Selectmen. I mean, that's how you be successful.
Well, I mean, the point is, right in the very beginning of that, of the bylaw, is that the town administrator is the chief administrative officer.
Yeah.
So it is administrative. There's not an increase in my supervisory duties or management of any departments, or any more budgets. It's placing some controls on, that I can implement on personnel,
But take, for example,
facilities, and
take
procurement.
the town accountant, for example. In my mind, you're responsible for the town accountant. And the town accountant is ultimately under us. We are the appointing authority. But we're yahoos when it comes to managing the day-to-day of someone like a town accountant. So I
Right.
keep going back to, you're the one.
Well,
Likewise, CM&D director, I would be this, the chain of command. I wouldn't want to get between you and either of those two people.
Well, there's specific wording in the statute that
I don't
says,
agree that you're a Yahoo or any one of us.
On this board?
So, I take exception to,
there's wording in here that I point out that, for those specific positions, their access to the Board of Selectmen is through the town administrator.
Yes.
But I'm certainly not the appointing authority of those positions.
But you weren't before either.
No, CM&D director, fire chief, police chief.
Right.
And town accountant is one that we're still looking at, but the ones that are clearly, that I have the authority to hire and terminate under this bylaw is the Board of Selectmen staff. A half-time position in the accounting office, and the CM&D union positions. Those are the only positions that are clearly under the town administrator's authority for appointing.
Well,
I would say that
Disappointing.
have been committed for many years to a strong town administrator, because I think it's in the best interest of this community as it is in the best interest of most communities. And this bylaw change I supported because I saw it clarifying and setting a platform upon which things could be built. It resolved a number of questions. It's unfortunate from your analysis that it seems now to maybe have taken away some issues that we hope were going to be with you, but it's a place to start. You need a base, sort of a clearly defined where you are type of scenario. So we have this. But I think if you look back at all the things that come before the board, I have been consistently, and I think the board has consistently tried to, just like the appointment of you as treasurer here earlier tonight, we have consistently tried to carry through on the vision we had of a stronger town administrator. And I, for one, am going to continue to work towards that goal.
Right.
The best solution for the town is to have competence, professional competence, administering the town. And that's what you represent for us. And so things that take away power, I think, are a step back, and things that add power, I think, are a step forward.
All I can say, it's a mixed bag, because, before I might try to implement something about procurement or something in HR and get pushback, like, where do you have that authority to say that we can't do that? Well, now I do have the authority that I can put something through that controls the hiring process, that has a form that any time that a personnel change is made, that a form gets processed through the town administrator and treasurer and then into payroll, town accountant and then into payroll. So there are certain things that are strengths, but it's administrative. It's not management, as in a, like would be in a town manager plan.
Or like a business.
Right.
Or like any...
At the end of the day, when he speaks, he's speaking on behalf of us as well, and
Right.
we have his back. I mean, we just have to not lose sight of that fact. That
Right.
Well, so let's bring this discussion back in a month after
Yeah.
you've had a chance to sort more of this out and also had a
Right.
few weeks at least experience. And then I'll go back to the suggestion I made, I think you were out of the room, Paul, that sometime in November or December, David reflects on what the first 3 or 4 months under this regime have brought, and if there are suggestions for ways to improve it to get closer to the ideal that, the stronger town administrator and to be more efficient, then he
Right.
sits down with the government task force and we think about a further amendment for the next town meeting.
Right.
good.
Just for example, if anywhere I've worked, I've always had the control of the personnel to move among departments, change a person's job description, and those are where the savings come in, and
You don't really
being
have
able
that
to,
with this.
no. it's not there, but I'll do as much as I
You
can,
will need
having control
cooperation,
of,
yeah.
having control of the, the policies, basically.
Okay.
Glad you did this, Theo.
Dave, anything else?
No, just pass these three out. These were the council opinions that back up what's in here.
Okay. And
Oh,
I
good.
think you had something to say about the file cabinet?
I had heard that there was an issue with asbestos in the town clerk's office, and that this had been purported, I guess, for a while, and I didn't know about it. But I just wanted anybody who did hear that, there is no asbestos in the cabinet that's in the town clerk's office. There is a label in there that says that there's not, and it was tested to say it's gypsum. It was tested, we had it tested.
Yeah.
There is no asbestos there.
Okay.
And I think it's important that people know that.
Well, since it's been represented to the contrary.
Right, I
so-
was shocked when I heard of it, and I'd been here a year and it hadn't been mentioned to me.
Never heard of it, huh?
I never heard of it either.
Good. Well, it was brought to my attention by the town clerk. She was concerned, and I guess had been saying that there was.
Yeah.
And so David looked into it and found the label and got it tested, so.
I think the person we brought in to do the testing found the
Found the
label.
label.
Yeah.
Great, good.
No asbestos on the asphalt.
Okay, selectmen reports, Paul, anything? Peter?
No?
All right, I only have, I guess, one thing in particular, which is I did meet with Superintendent Bliss and with the chair from Dover the other day because Superintendent Bliss had a couple of issues he wanted to bring back to the boards of selectmen. One is a suggestion to extend the joint agreement. Remember, we did a one-year term of the joint agreement last year on capital funding, and the idea would be, if we've got some degree of comfort with how that's worked out over the first year, to come back and do it for a longer period of time this year, this next town meeting, so we don't, or I guess before town meeting, so we don't have to go back annually and renew this agreement. The other was a suggestion that he has made and discussed with the school committees, the three school committees, Sherborn, Dover, and the region, to have a single meeting at which the budgets for all three school committees are discussed sequentially over a 6-hour period or so with each board on the same night, so that anybody from the public or anybody from the select boards or any place else, advisories and so forth, who are interested in having that discussion, they have it at one time rather than through a series of individual meetings by the individual school committees with each of the boards. So that's been his suggestion. I think he's reported that it's been well received by the school committees, and he wanted me to bring that back. He does have a date. I forget what date he had in mind, but it's a date sometime next spring. Okay? That was it.
Before you end your report, I did watch on television the Barber reservation report, and I saw you're sitting in the front row. I wonder if you could tell us your impressions of that, if you
Well,
want
they
to
had-
share anything.
Yeah, I mean, that was a few weeks ago. It was, there was a pretty good attendance for that, and it was a presentation by some Conway School of Landscape Design, I guess, students, or I think they were students, who did a really extensive study of the Barber and came up with several alternative scenarios, and then it was basically a planning charrette or a planning exercise. They explained what they had conceptually come up with for three different scenarios. One was more of a preservation scenario, one was more of an active use scenario, and then something in between. And, then they took input from the folks in the room, and they went away and I guess finalized a report. I don't know, Susan, do you know where the final?
Just actually just came in this past week.
Okay.
The final is in.
So the final report is in. So that'll be, I'm sure, something that is discussed,
Right.
soon, probably.
I know the Land Management Task Force, which is, they're going to be discussing it, and then it was this past Thursday night at Conservation, they mentioned that it was in, and it'll be discussed a little.
And the big, Paul, you probably saw this if you watched it, but the big reveal for me was how much that place has changed over the past 10 years in terms of the amount of water that has been held back by the beaver dams. And so there are areas of flooding that I can remember walking through as recently as 10 years ago when I lived over on that side of town, which now I guess are inaccessible most of the time because of the beavers.
Well, and most of that is because of the four culverts that go underneath of the railroad tracks.
But they're blocked up now.
They've all been blocked
Yeah.
out. And CXS has just recently, I know a lot of people seem to think that, oh, they're not using those trails anymore. They've just recently gone back out there, trimmed all the brush lawn, and because my property butts up to it, I've heard a lot more activity out there, and they're turning the old rail ground, CSX ground, over off of 126. It's now becoming their maintenance
Okay.
area for CSX.
So they're backing cars over there?
Yeah, and trains are doing work there, and so maybe now's the time to say, can we do some maintenance on those culverts?
Okay, so that's...
Okay, could we get a copy of the report and circulate it to the board?
Yeah, the new report, that'll be a good idea. Okay. We should go to, we got to approve a warrant, and we should approve some minutes. We want to set another meeting date. I guess the next
we're up-
meeting is at
it's
8/7
8/7.
at 6 PM.
So move to set the next two meetings as August 7th at 6 PM and August 21 at 6 PM.
As far as future time, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, take your vote.
That's,
Okay.
yeah, that's
We don't
fine.
have to vote.
On the 8/7, I was actually wondering if we could start at 5 that day instead of 6. Are you okay with
I'm
starting at 5?
okay with that, yeah.
Paul? And which might also be good if we're talking about the policies, the town policies, because employees would be more apt to be able to hear that, too.
Mhm.
How about 5:30?
You can't make 5.
It's just really hard. I mean, as it is now, I'm leaving work at 4 o'clock. To get here at 5, I'd have to leave at,
2:30.
yeah.
Yeah, I just have a
I do
constraint.
have to work for a living.
I have a constraint at the other end. That's all. I'll do what you can do. If I have to leave, I guess I have to leave.
No more remote,
What's that?
no more remote participation.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that. Well, I will be doing that at a later.
We want another crack at that.
Yeah, let's not give up on that.
Yeah, no, David and I talked about my experience, and he's working on fixing those pieces of it.
Yeah.
So, like anything else, there's learning curves. You learn from trial and error.
On future topics, the earliest date that I could line up, Corey Lincoln, who's been the Leland Farms trustee, and a meeting with the selectmen and council present is September 4th.
Okay.
Now, you had some correspondence from someone over there, so you got to deal with that, right?
We have correspondence from a number of people over there.
Yeah, okay.
And Barbara is sending me something else today from town council regarding the appointment.
My understanding was that that appointment is not up this year, is that correct?
The last filed documents show a 3-year appointment that would expire
Next year.
6/15/2015.
So there's nothing before us in terms of, one of the differences between what we thought the last time this was discussed and now is we
Right.
now have a divisive council that says
Right.
that this is not an open appointment this year. If the appointee resigns and we need to appoint someone
Right.
new, then we'll have somebody to appoint.
Right.
But we don't have anybody to appoint at this.
However, there still is nothing that says that it's the Board of Selectmen's appointment. We were proceeding on the assumption that it goes to the Board of Selectmen. And I think we should talk about that night on how that could be cleaned up to actually make that, put that into,
I thought we had an
Into the
opinion from
document.
council.
Yeah, I thought we did too. I mean, it's the town's land.
So it's not, to me, an open question at all. When town council said we were the appointing
I
authority,
thought that's what I
no,
read.
there's nothing that said that town council doesn't, there's nothing that we've communicated where town council said that you are the appointing authority. They had said that there the document refers to the Sherborn housing, and that we could, it seemed logical that money has come to the town, we could make that assumption that it falls back on the Board of Selectmen, but there is nothing that actually gives the selectmen that right to make that appointment. So the easiest way of
Well,
cleaning
the
that
entity that
up-
was the ground lessee that had the appointment authority has disappeared, which means the
Right.
lease has merged back into the ownership of the land, which means that the town is now, stands in the shoes of that, at least from a real estate standpoint, stands in the shoes of the lessee. There's effectively a direct lease.
That's the same conclusion I drew.
Yeah, okay.
But I'm just saying, I don't have that statement from town council, because it got to a point where I had notified Barbara, based on these assumptions, we're proceeding that it's our responsibility to make this appointment until somebody comes forward and shows us that it's not our
Okay.
responsibility.
Okay, but forgetting the appointment, just for a moment, just forgetting who has authority, who's appointed, who's on the trustees, we have this structure in town full of residents, and we have an agreement with some entity with the town that involves money, which is to be used for certain purposes, and this structure and these folks are having some issues with what's with the money, and we have questions about what's with the money with the town, and somebody needs to get smart about that sooner than later, forgetting what we do with whomever in a meeting. I think we just got to get a
Right.
bit smarter about what's happening.
Right.
And because we have a financial interest, and we pay bills out of a specific
Right.
account, but the money that goes into that account arguably is not the deal that was struck between the town and
Right.
the entity there.
Right.
Okay? So all that has to, and because there are folks, that stuff is hitting the fan.
Right, and September 4th, that's, I'm not saying that that's
When we'll have
when you're
a-
going to do an appointment, but that's,
When we can have that discussion.
because
But-
right now, she has a seat there until, that's not expired, and she has not resigned from that seat.
Right, and a little bit of what's going on.
But I'm
Okay.
just talking about accounts receivable of the town of Sherborn. We're owed money,
Right,
and that money's to be used for specific purposes, which I believe those purposes are in the best interests of that structure and the residents within that structure.
right.
And I don't know that we've been doing, that's been happening properly. So that's why I'd say, forgetting who's serving in what role,
Right,
to the extent that the town can get smarter about this and maybe enlist the help of somebody that might be willing to get
right.
their hands dirty over there a little bit.
I think
Yeah.
David's
That would be
working on
useful.
that.
Yeah, I know, I
He's
think you
working on
are
that.
working on that.
Right,
Yeah, and I mean, part of what I perceived the time they were in here, Peter, is we're kind of the rope in a tug of war. And so there's a, it seems to be a standing 2-2 tie, and the selectman's designee becomes, in effect, the tiebreaker. And I don't know that is necessarily something we can solve with a
No, I'm
different
just
appointee.
asking for the facts. I just want to know the facts.
Understood, but I think that to the extent there's a perception out there that a new appointee is
It's
going to
gonna solve the
solve
problem. Yeah,
the
yeah,
2-2
yeah.
tie, it
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah, no.
At best, if it happened, it would reverse the tie, it would be 3-2 the other direction.
Right.
But until the two factions are able to reach some common ground, there's really not going to be a change in the dynamics over there.
Just
Yeah.
one other point, someone said that the corporation disappeared, the Sherborn Housing Corporation, which I had something to do with
Yeah.
creating and something to do with letting it go quiet. It's not gone. We could revive it if we wanted to.
Right, it's been involuntarily dissolved for failure to file.
All we need to do is to file some financial reports and pay some
Pay a
past
bunch of money,
fees.
yeah.
And then it's back, and we could appoint a board of directors to the corporation, and
Well,
they could go.
the easiest way of correcting it so it never has to come up again, is either the trustees vote to change the wording in the trust, or we do something to match the wording in the trust, which would be form that corporation again.
Yeah, and Paul, I mean, we don't have to do this today, but on September 4th, maybe you can explain a little bit about the background of how that got dissolved and why. I understand from folks who were involved at the time that there was some reasoning, and maybe it wasn't unanimously believed, but there was at least some, certain theory or strategy, and I think it'd be helpful to know that, but I don't want to talk about it tonight. So.
No, but let me just say, on the facts, and I'll be a broken record, the buck stops here. If I'm presented with a warrant request for payment out of a specific fund on behalf of that structure and that whatever entity it is, I'm not going to go there until I have more facts.
Mhm.
Okay? So I can't be any more clear.
Okay. All right. Let's go through the minutes. Oh, where's Diane?
She's probably going to get the warrant.
Oh, is she going to get the warrant?
I have the warrant signature page here.
That's all we need. That's all we need there.
We can start working on the minutes. So we have minutes for a bunch of dates. Does anybody have any amendments to, these are
No.
minutes for 3/27, 4/17, 5/15, 5/29, and 6/9, and we agreed to hold 6/19.
Right, so I move to approve the minutes of 3:27, 4:17, 5:15, 5:29, and 6:9.
Okay, and Paul, do you have any amendments or any comments on any of those?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, and I have one. It doesn't mention Selectman Jaimo being appointed to the Town Center Water Systems Option Committee, even though I'm absolutely positive I was,
You
right?
were,
Oh, it's by a
yes.
separate motion. Never mind, I correct that. Diane
You were
again
special.
has it perfect.
You were special.
It's carved up by a separate motion. Okay, so, so I think and the other thing I wanted to note here, we went to executive session. This is the night of May 29th.
May 29th.
And I recused from the cell tower discussion. I would like that noted. So with those amendments, do we have a motion, we have a second, any further discussion to approve these minutes? All in favor? Aye, okay, minutes are approved. And
Now, what about May and April, March and April?
I thought Peter read those.
Move to approve all those.
Yeah, 327,
Those are in
417,
there?
515.
Okay, I didn't hear that.
529,
6/9,
6/9.
Yeah, okay. And we have a warrant now?
The warrant, I haven't gone through the warrant. I'll be doing that tomorrow morning. Peter had spent some time with it today, and I know wrote up some
Some
comments
questions,
about
none of which are to hold off on payment of anything, so I would move to approve that warrant, subject to David's review and approval.
Second?
Okay. I just want to look into something. Is this a payroll warrant?
There's payroll, and then there's,
accounts payable.
Accounts
and
payable.
I was wondering about that $1 million payment to Mike Giammo there, but...
Yeah, is Board of Health on the payroll
direct
today?
deposit. No,
They're
That
not.
was on the last warrant.
last one.
Okay, so
And so the next one,
well, there's a Board of Health, but it's a reimbursement for certain things, I guess. Oh, no, that's not Board of Health. That's Council on Aging, good, okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, all in favor? Okay, great.
David curses me every time he sees my questions, but
And this is subject to David's,
No,
that's right.
okay.
we happily respond.
If we don't have anything else, I'm going to read the language to enter into the executive session.
So we weren't commenting on June 19th?
Paul had some
So we're
comments.
going to
if you
give
can
those
change it to
directly to
Diane,
you?
and we'll do it the
Okay,
next
gotcha.
time.
Very good, very good.
Okay. I
I was
move that the Board of
confused.
Selectmen enter into executive session for discussion regarding Murchison complaint pursuant to Chapter 30A, Sections 21A, 5, and 7, and Suffolk Construction versus DCAM 449, Mass. 444, and I so declare that having this discussion in open session may have a detrimental effect on the town's position. I need a second and a roll call vote.
Second.
Second by Mr. Caruso. Having a second, we will now have a roll call vote. Mr. Durensis.
Aye.
Mr. Caruso.
Aye.
And Mr. Jaimo, I am aye. Having passed by a vote of 3-0, the open session is now closed. We are now in executive session. We will not be returning to open session.
All right.
Diane?